council, and maybe if I can just maybe at this stage mention that it's the last cabinet for a number of people. This morning, Jim Roberts, Tom Cook, Neil McGee and Fiona Campbell. Just like to thank you all for your contributions in your length of service, and wish you all the best for the future. And not to give me too hard a time today. Could also maybe mention the fact that Councillor Jim Todd went through his hip operation yesterday. After 3 hours, he watched it all, and apparently, as Jim would, and had 2 paracetamol. So we wish him all the best. I'm sure he's up this morning listening to Black Sabbath or something. Okay, go to the cabinet itself and just call for the second question.
Thanks, Chair. So I have Councillor Douglas Reid.
Yep.
Councillor Jim McMahon.
Here, thanks.
Councillor John McGee.
Yep.
Councillor Tom Cook.
Here.
Councillor Ian Linton.
Yep.
Councillor Fiona Campbell.
Here, thanks.
Councillor Claire Maitland. Here. Councillor Claire Leitch.
Here.
Councillor Neil McGee.
Here.
Councillor Jim Roberts.
Here.
Councillor Jackie Todd.
Yeah.
And do we have Shaheen Mirza? Nope. Babs Mowat.
Here.
Reverend Dr. Alan Bent.
Yes, here, thanks.
And I have an apology from Ian Pettigrew and Jackie Livingston.
Yes, I'm here.
Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Christine. Okay, going to item 1, which is the declarations of interest. Is there where is Jim?
Aye, Chair, it's the community asset transfer. It's on item 4 on the agenda. I'm a trustee, coming up mentioned, and also an interest in item 12 on the agenda. And I think for item 12, I think I might step out for this one.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for that, Jim. Okay. Okay, and Jackie, same as Jim for the...
Same as Jim for item 12, yeah, I'll step out, same interests, right, thank you.
Okay, any others? Just... Okay. Thanks for that. And then we're going to item 2, which is the proposed consultation and bid to Scottish Government Learning Investment Programme, and Linda will take us through that. Hi, Linda.
Through you, Chair. Good morning, colleagues. Lovely to be with you this morning. Colleagues, this may feel like Groundhog Day. You had a very similar report in front of you a matter of weeks ago, and this is us with the promise to come back to you with a proposal document. So just in terms of follow-up. So colleagues, the purpose of the report is to seek formal Cabinet approval to undertake statutory consultation on options around a potential bid to the Scottish Government Futures Trust in regards to the National Learning Estate Investment Programme. It should also be noted, colleagues, that in addition to the statutory consultation that's outlined in this report, there will also be really significant consultation of a non-statutory nature in relation to the development proposed, should this be approved by the consultation itself. Colleagues, this morning I am seeking your understanding in adding a verbal recommendation under paragraph 2. We have 2 main recommendations. First, asking Cabinet to approve the proposal document attached, and 2, that I am mandated to undertake a public consultation on the proposals. As a verbal recommendation, colleagues, I'm seeking that you would allow me in the time between today and Monday, alongside the Chief Governance Officer, to make any small non-material changes or alterations to the proposal document of a technical and drafting nature, colleagues, mainly pertaining just to a few of the smaller legal aspects with particular pertinence to Willowbank, to ensure that we fulfil the consultation in regards to the Scotland Act 210. Colleagues, in regards to the proposal, these have been in front of you before. In terms of the proposals themselves, they are not subject to change. So clearly, colleagues, an extension to Willowbank School, at the current on-bank campus to incorporate a new Willowbank Primary, additional flexible provision within Willowbank Primary School to meet the needs of a small number of young people aged between 3 and 5 with significant and complex additional support needs, the formal incorporation of an existing inclusion resource at on-bank campus as a supported learning centre, and lastly but not least, further early childhood centre resource at Mount Carmel Primary School, colleagues. Colleagues, in respect to paragraphs 4 through 8 as background to the proposal as pertinent to Willowbank, clearly we're all aware of issues around about capacity. We've already followed up on not pursuing the initial consultation that involved St Joseph's campus, and clearly I think we're all aware, regardless of the outcome of proposal or consultation, the need for a much more long-term and indeed sustainable solution for our young people who attend Willowbank. In paragraphs 9 through 11, we cover the on-thank primary school and on-thank ECC piece, with the mention once more, as in the previous paper, colleagues, of the supported learning centre trial and indeed the ECC trial for young people with additional support needs. And clearly in paragraph 11, colleagues, the extension of availability of ELC places, considering that we will be welcoming more 1 and 2-year-olds into our services following the extension of eligibility. Colleagues, moving through to the educational context, paragraph 12 gives an overview of the importance of this as a consideration. 13 through 15 were also covered in the previous report, that this is very much about equity of experience for our young people that attend Willowbank. They don't tend to go through the really exciting transitions that our young people in the mainstream go through, be that from ELC to primary and indeed primary through to secondary, and this proposal would allow that. Colleagues, paragraphs 16 through 17, SLCs are a really well-established resource in East Ayrshire Council. We're incredibly proud of them, and they really do tie in with our place-based and inclusive approach. And by incorporating one formally, colleagues, into on-thank primary, we think, number one, we've got a great need for that in that particular location, but it does mean that so many more children will not need to be bussed out elsewhere to places that they don't feel part of and indeed away from their peers. Colleagues, 18 through 20 covers Mount Carmel and the extra siting for ECC places there. 21 through 27 colleagues cover policy, legal, HR, equality, finance and risk. And I do have to come back again, colleagues, to the risk inherent in this particular proposal and consultation, that potentially we don't get the funding through the bid, but we're going to do everything in our power, if the consultation and proposal allow us to do so, to attract that bid in that way. Colleagues, in referring to page numbers in the following piece, I'm referring to those at the top of the page rather than the bottom, so I'm referring to those at the top. Appendix 1 on page 8 starts the formal proposal document. Most of us in the meeting today will have seen these before. They are standard proposal documentation as outlined legally, colleagues, but just in popping through this very briefly, page 8 gives us a flavour of the coverage of aspects that are pertinent to statutory consultation. Page 9 highlights some of the distribution of the proposal documentation. Page 10 is a summary of the process as standard. So it's a standard process, colleagues, but we've already recognised the need for really significant non-statutory consultation around about the aspects that aren't covered in this piece. Colleagues, you will notice we haven't got the dates of the public meetings in there on page 11. Those will be forthcoming and in the documentation for Monday. At this point in time, we're just trying to ascertain officer availability and indeed whether or not we might be able to do some of these in person and let people come and engage with us on that basis, which I think we would all agree is always a little bit stronger if we possibly can. Page 12, colleagues, outlines the involvement on a statutory basis of Education Scotland. They are already with us on this, colleagues, on this particular journey and are supportive of the consultation. And this also outlines their role in the preparation of clearly a report that everyone will understand has been the subject of external scrutiny. Colleagues, page 13 covers the decision, ministerial call-in and indeed the proposal itself. Pages 14 through 17, clearly there are an awful lot of national and indeed local drivers that are driving this work, colleagues, as a basis for moving forward. And in page 18, 19 and 20, we summarise some of the educational benefits that we see by undertaking the proposal, the consultation and hopefully the bid if that's mandated through the consultation. We cover there the campus fit for the future, the benefits for Onthank Primary, SLC and ECC, for Willowbank and for Mount Carmel, and indeed, colleagues, as part of the bid, we will be consulting with an awful lot of other services, for example, the Health and Social Care Partnership and the Leisure Trust and others, to see what we can actually co-locate to make this campus very much one for the future. Colleagues, we then move on to the last part of the report, which is Appendix Ii, which is once again absolutely standardised, and that is the consultation response form. So, Chair, that covers both the report and the proposal. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Linda. A real ambitious, hopefully a solution to some of the issues that we've been having in Willowbank, and it's good to see the nursery provision being extended as well. Thanks for that, Linda. Fiona Campbell.
Yeah, thanks, Dougie. Yeah, thanks very much, Linda. Just very briefly to say that I can support absolutely these recommendations, and I do hope that the consultation process goes smoothly, although I won't be directly participating in it. I hope ultimately that this ambitious bid is successful, and thanks for all your work in this. That's all, thank you.
Thanks, Fiona. Thanks to you too. Tom?
No, thanks, Chair. Again, I support the proposal that's here in front of us today. Just a question, and it may be just a matter, this is not the place to put it, but I don't see any mention in here about the actual refurbishment of the building of Onthank Primary School, because I know it needs considerable work. And if this is possible, this is just simply because this is purely on the educational aspect of it, but just some kind of reassurance that the school building itself will be properly refurbished and brought up to better standard.
Absolutely, Tom. Linda?
Thanks very much for raising that, Councillor Cook, and through you, Leader. The aspects around about the refit of the schools are not subject to the statutory piece of consultation. So Councillor Cook's absolutely right. They don't feature in this report, but they feature heavily in the non-statutory consultation, because that will also be the case for Mount Carmel, where in the previous paper we moved the deep retrofit of both to make both absolutely up-to-date new learning spaces, etc. So they don't feature in this report because they're non-statutory, but they absolutely will feature in what we bring back to Cabinet via the non-statutory aspect.
Thanks for that. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Linda. John?
Hi, thanks. I see it's an ambitious report, and I look forward to seeing the results of the consultation. I'm not so much bothered about the consultation going smoothly, as long as we're making sure that we're consulting widely as is proposed here, and that's the most important thing, that we get meaningful consultation. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, couldn't agree more, Councillor McGee. This will be absolutely huge in terms of both the statutory side and indeed the non-statutory side. And I think what I should have said also through my report is the chairs of all of the parent councils so far have also been consulted on the content of these papers, to have all of them alongside with us on this journey, and absolutely understanding from the outset what it is that we want to jointly achieve as a group of schools, SLCs and ECCs. So it's great to have their support from the absolute outset, and indeed the support as we go forward of the remaining parent and carer body, as well as the extensive list that you see in the proposal documentation. Thanks, Councillor McGee.
Thanks very much, Linda. Anyone else? No. Thanks for your contributions, everyone. And go to recommendations with the verbal addition that Linda said at the start. Can we agree those recommendations? Okay, thanks for that. And go on to item 3 now, which is update current employability activity delivered by East District Council Services. And David.
Yeah. Thanks, Chair. Well, good morning. I'll take you through the main report and introduce Ian Burgoyne to provide an overview of paragraphs 37 to 43 and 59 to 67, which will take you through the work, education or undertaking partnership at SL33, along with an update on the local employability partnership and the No One Left Behind operating plan. The purpose of this paper is to update Cabinet on the range of employability work streams delivered by the 5 council services and accessed by clients of all ages across East Ayrshire, and also to set out the internal arrangements to support the local employability partnership delivery model. The report sets out the extensive partnership working both internally within the council and in the wider joint working with other agencies. Members will recall that Cabinet previously considered employability reports setting out the proposals to set up the local employability partnership, which detailed the terms of reference and all the proposed requirements of that partnership. Also, Cabinet considered the reports which detailed the funding uncertainty regarding long-term funding arrangements, which have now been clarified, and the report provides an update on these matters. Paragraphs 6 through to 20 sets out the background and challenges delivered through the European Social Fund by the Economic Growth Employability Team, and also sets out the amounts awarded with this fund and where match funding arrangements are in place, and also details the programmes delivered through the employability pipeline, with paragraphs 10 through to 12 confirming the outcomes delivered. There are a number of key outcomes noted within the report, and I would highlight a couple of areas in relation to the work carried out since June 2020, where 37 people have undertaken HGV driving qualifications and successfully secured new or improved employment, with funding made available also for 288 accredited training courses, all during the pandemic, with the challenges faced by the teams and by the clients attempting to secure the full-time employment. The current European Social Fund programme is due to end in December 2022, although a request to extend the operation until June 2023 has been submitted to ensure that services maximise and utilise the fundings granted over a greater time period. Paragraphs 21 through to 36 set out the No One Left Behind programme, and funding arrangements are set out in detail in paragraph 23, with Scottish Government confirming a multi-year funding model for the future to enable partners to effectively co-design and deliver appropriate employability services. While it is now clear that resources for employability from the Scottish Government will be reduced in 2022-2023 in the short term, this can be mitigated by being able to retain current underspends, as well as the amount of resources currently available from EU and potentially UK Government funds. No One Left Behind continues to provide the opportunity for the local employability partnerships to ensure that the co-investment approach achieves Scottish and local government joint ambitions, delivering transformational change and employability system that improves outcomes for all users. The joint working between the Scottish and local government has introduced a 3-year operating plan from April 2022 to March 2025, which aims to set out local priorities, challenges and interventions to be introduced to outline support required to meet the individual needs of the labour market demands. Paragraphs 30 to 33 summarises the additional support measures provided through No One Left Behind in respect of the employer recruitment incentives, long-term unemployed, modern apprenticeships and supported employment. Paragraphs 34 through to 36 provides an update on the Employability Fund programme through the procurement process, and work continues to progress this work with the creation of a local employability partnership commissioning subgroup. Paragraphs 44 through 49 provides an update on the 4 projects being delivered under the Community Renewal Fund, and UK Government officials attended meetings here on the 18th of March to see first-hand the Enable and East Ayrshire Leisure Trust programmes. Following submission of the monitoring report to the UK Government, the Ministers have agreed to extend the programme to the 31st of December 2022. This is welcome because the initial programme required that we had to deliver these programmes within a short duration and by the end of the financial year. Members will be aware that the prospectus for the latest round of the Shared Prosperity Fund was published on the 13th of April, and one of the key objectives will focus on people and skills. Work is underway to create and submit an investment plan to UK Government, and the Council have agreed with North and South Ayrshire Councils to develop the investment plan on a regional basis, aligned to the work of the Regional Economic Strategy. The investment plan will be considered by Cabinet in June 2022, prior to the submission to the UK Government for consideration over the summer to meet the UK Government's deadline. Funding would then begin once the plans are agreed by the UK Government. Paragraphs 50 to 55 reaffirm Cabinet's decision at its meeting on the 28th of February to approve an allocation of £6 million over a 3-year period from the Council's COVID recovery funds for new jobs and training, which aims to create around 200 placements, which will be managed by the Head of People and Culture. The key principles are set out in paragraph 52, and once the programme is finalised, Cabinet will be provided with an update on the final arrangements and programme for rollout. Paragraphs 56 through to 58 sets out the internal arrangements for the Employability Project Board, which will deliver a coordinated approach to offer a single door approach to our clients and feed into the multi-agency LEP. And diagram 1 sets out the link between the Council services, the LEP and the regional delivery for the Shared Prosperity Fund. I'm going to pass you over to Ian now, who will take you through the arrangements for SL33 Education's input through Young Persons Guarantee and the Local Employability Partnership.
Thank you, Chair. Paragraphs 37 to 41 outline the main focus of the Education Service work in post-school. As you can imagine, the cohort we would mainly focus on is the 16 to 24 age group. Paragraph 37 outlines some of the success we've had with the SL33, the DYW Partnership Centre in Titchfield Street, and the single door approach there, where a range of services, a range of partners work together to support end users on a daily basis. Paragraph 38 looks at the impact of the Young Person Guarantee offer in East Ayrshire and some of the outcomes that have been achieved in a relatively short period of time, including employment, apprenticeships, further learning and training. 39 focuses on the post-school No One Left Behind team led by Marjorie Harvey, who really focus on the young people who are hardest to reach, who are furthest from the labour market. And again, some of the progressions for these young people are indicated in the paragraph. 40 moves on to Parental Employability Support Fund, where we are working with parents to either build skills to move them into higher paid, higher quality jobs, or to move them into employment if they're unemployed. And I think it's worth saying there as well that the team have been doing a lot of work with our Syrian families over the last year to support them into employment and training. David also mentioned the Local Employability Partnership, and really paragraphs 59 to 67, really the new enhanced role of the Employability Partnership, which has been to Cabinet previously, and now is the single point of commissioning for employability in East Ayrshire. It's a really important wide-ranging role, and reflecting that is a whole range of governance and monitoring that we'll have to put in place, and that's reflected in the operating plan, which is appended as an appendix for members to read. And I think that's me.
Thanks, Chair. And just to kind of finalise and just taking through the end of the report, just paragraph 71, 72 highlights that there are financial risks associated to the Council for the European funding if the allocation is not fully spent. So we are working with colleagues in finance and having a monitoring programme in place to ensure that we actually deliver on this work. So, Chair, happy to answer any questions. Recommendations are set out in paragraph 2, and Ian and I are here to take any questions. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks very much for the presentation. Employability is obviously, from the budget and before, continues to be a major area of concern for us, and we're trying to address it in many ways we can. And I think what's going on at SL33, I've now visited a couple of times. It's really great, the work that's going on there, and I think we're really lucky to have that facility. our authority, and it's just a pity we can't do more than what we're doing, but hopefully you will be able to spend that money that'll be there, and that should not be a problem. Members, any comments? Claire?
That's great, thanks, Chair. David, Ian, there's an immense amount of great work going on here, everything for what we are young folk, our young carers, modern apprentices, working with people with barriers for employment. I think as elected members and staff, we do see this throughout our time. And we all know the amazing work Marjorie Harvey does. I mean, Marjorie is a force of nature, you wouldn't say no to Marjorie. And she's got such an amazing way of connecting with the young people who are hardest to reach, and doing a terrific job there. I'll never forget a few years ago there was a multicultural event put on. It was Syrian refugees came together, cooked some food with Scotland, and see to hear some of their stories, and to say, and to hear what their aspirations were and what their vision was here in Scotland. See to know that we're working with our refugees and Syrian families to get into employment if that's what they want to do is absolutely fantastic, and helping them achieve their dream. Again, just showing what a forward-thinking and inclusive, proudly, that we are. So just thank you for the report. It's good to see some good work going on, and looking forward to seeing how this progresses.
Thanks very much. John and John first.
There's no doubt it is a really good paper. I just wanted paragraph 29, and we get the figures there, but if we go at figures of money we've supported and the money are in employment further on down the line, then once you start apprenticeships and beyond, and paragraph 39, that's obviously a very challenging role, but I just want to ask about the 28 that disengaged for the programme or were unable to complete due to factors, a number of factors there. So obviously we ken that 28. So what do we do then for that 28? I mean, can we obviously don't just simply abandon them, because we've got to try and make sure that they don't just slip through altogether. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Ian?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, absolutely, Councillor McGee. The 28 that will be either signposted to other services, they'll be tracked and monitored, and it could be that this is a temporary disengagement. So what we have to be is proactive, because there will be a time when these young people come back and say that they are ready to progress. So there's a consistent and constant monitoring of all the clients, all the end users that we refer to here. If they're 16 to 24, we have the 16 plus data hub, which basically tells us in real time what they're doing and if they're working, if they're participating. So that monitoring process, as I say, is consistent and ongoing. So if it does come, the young people, certainly if it's a medical problem, mental health issue, that by signposting them appropriately to the right service, and that is worked through, we then go back to them and ask them again if they're ready to start engaging again. So it's an ongoing process. They don't slip through the net. We keep monitoring them, keep tracking them.
Thanks, Ian. Dave, did you want to add in?
No, I was just going to add to that in terms of the long-term unemployed, obviously if they're 25 and up, then there's a net there to catch them as well, because you could have somebody who's within the 16 to 24 bracket who's been long-term unemployed, that then goes into that over 25s, and the whole programme of No One Left Behind is what it says. We continue to work with them. It can be challenging, but we continue to work with them.
Jim?
Thanks very much, Dougie. It is a good paper. I think always would agree in relation to that, but I think the governance aspect, bearing in mind the significant funding we're putting into this, is going to be so important. In paragraph 3, and it's just a kind of follow-on for the points that John made, paragraph 38, one of the ones that jumped out to me was of these 30 are undertaking salary-supported modern apprenticeships for 12 months with local private employers. Now, 12 months isn't a long period of time for a training for an apprenticeship. So it's all the more important that, you know, we are monitoring the scheme to make sure they are getting quality training, that time is spent productively. And it's not just a case of, and I don't mean any disrespect here, they're emptying bins and making tea and what, no. They've got to maximise the 12 months period that they've got the grace for. But a good paper, governance is key. And the other thing I would say is once they've done their apprenticeship, their formal training, the days of working your doorstep's long gone. So I think if we can link in further afield where these people are looking for jobs, then if we can help them further afield, even if it means I'm going out with the area, but hopefully they will find employment in the area, then it's a case of we help them to get jobs. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Jim. Just, I mean, that kind of ties on what I was going to maybe say to Joe in terms of risks and responsibilities and within the governance, the shared prosperity fund. There's risks there if it's not forthcoming, or, you know.
Thank you, Leader, and through you, you know, as we see the demise of you know, what is a substantial project of EU funding and the start of something new, then that brings with it, you know, heightened risks, but also possible new opportunities for us. We know from the EU funding that, you know, this council has been the receiver of substantial funds over the years. As David touched on a few moments ago, the detail behind the UK Shared Prosperity Fund was published last week, and the allocations for East Ayrshire and for the Ayrshire region were allocated. £7.3 million across Ayrshire, just over £6 million for us through to the 3 years through to 24-25. And so at this point in time, we are working with colleagues, David included, and also other local councils to work out what that new funding stream means for us. There is, you know, a need to quantify the benefits and the liabilities and obligations that rest in terms of that reducing and ending EU funding, as David touched on, through to December 22, and then also crank up and start the bids for the Shared Prosperity Fund, and that £6 million for East Ayrshire through for the 3 years. It's going to be, there's still debate and some slight confusion remaining over the background to the Shared Prosperity Fund. And so at this point in time, we're quantifying just the obligations that rest with the Council in terms of the ending of the EU funding, and also what the allocation and the possible opportunities that arise from the UK Shared Prosperity Fund will be with us. But it's something that we'll bring back to members in early course, given that we have more information last week and we're just digesting that at the moment.
Okay, so that's your point as well. Okay, so if there's no other questions, can we agree the recommendations? Okay, it's now the point for the non-elected members to leave. But as I did at the start, can I maybe thank some of you might be returned, some of you might not. But just to thank you, certainly for myself and the rest of the cabinet here, thanks for your contributions over the past few years, and wish you all the best for the future. Okay, I'll give you a minute or two to log off. Thank you. Okay, we've got the community asset transfer. I believe it's the 60th community asset transfer of the one last week, or fortnight ago was the 59th, so it's quite a significant one. So who's taking us through that one? Craig.
Thank you, Chair. The community asset transfer paper presented to Cabinet this morning requests consideration in the future of the former book cycle building, 39 Bar Hill Road, Cumnock. The background of the paper is listed in paragraphs 3 through 5. The request for the asset transfer of this property comes from Cumnock Men's Shed, a charitable organisation formed in June 2021. Members have already supported the charity, having agreed to £50,000 of place-based investment fund into the building at the Cabinet meeting on the 30th of March. The charity have presented a strong application for the building with a detailed funding package, which will bring the facility back into being an accessible community asset. The recommendation to members is that a 25-year lease of the facility is agreed when written confirmation of all funding required for the refurbishment has been received. In the interim, it is recommended to agree a licence to occupy for the charity in order they can access the site unimpeded for contractor quotes, etc. The rent of the building will be set at £650 per annum. Legal implications of the paper are set out in paragraphs 7 through 8. There are no further financial implications associated with the report. There are no implications arising from the quality impact assessment, human resources or net zero. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thanks, Craig. Seems straightforward. Any questions? Okay, can we agree the recommendations, para 2? Okay, good, thanks, Craig. On to the next one, which is a proposed installation of road humps at Hurlford Road. I would have said Belfield, no record, but I'm not arguing. Kilmarnock. Kevin.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. The purpose of this report is to advise Cabinet that objections have been received to a proposal to provide road humps on Hurlford Road, Riccarton, and to ask Cabinet to approve the officer recommendation that the scheme should not proceed. There are 3 separate speed limits currently enforced on Hurlford Road, Riccarton, a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit from the junction with Queen's Drive westwards, and then a combination of a permanent 30-mile-an-hour and a part-time 20-mile-an-hour when lights flash, 30-mile-an-hour at the other times in the remainder of the road to its junction with the Campbell Street roundabout. The part-time 20-mile-an-hour section of the road was previously supported by a traffic cabin scheme comprising speed cushions, build-outs and refuge islands, and the cushions deteriorated beyond economic repair and were removed on road safety grounds approximately 5 years ago. In response to concerns about the speed of traffic in the vicinity of the entrance to Belfield Estate, currently within the 40-mile-an-hour speed limit, a scheme was developed to extend the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit to the junction with Queen's Drive, and the scheme also proposed to reduce the speed limit in Queen's Drive to 30-mile-an-hour, currently 40-mile-an-hour. In accordance with the Road Humps Scotland Regulations 98 and the Road Scotland Act 1984, following consultation with police and other statutory bodies, the proposals to install road humps were advertised in the local press on the 24th of November 2021. Notices were also placed on site in the vicinity of each proposed road hump. Details were also posted online at Tell Me Scotland and on the consultation page of the ARA website. In accordance with the legislation, the objection period lasted for 28 days. No objections were received to the proposals to extend the 30-mile-an-hour speed limits. 2 letters of objection were received in response to the proposals to provide 5 road humps on Hurlford Road, Riccarton, and 1 objection objected on the basis that road humps are inconvenient to drivers of classic cars and indicating that the road environment was more conducive to a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit, being wide with good visibility and remote footways. In accordance with the Road Scotland Act 1984, the Council is required to consider all objections made and not withdrawn. Having considered the position of the objectors, officers would recommend that the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit is extended without road humps being installed, but with a vehicle-activated sign provided at the eastern extent of Hurlford Road. Officers further recommend that speed and volume monitoring is undertaken 12 months after the completion of the scheme, and that further traffic cabin measures are discussed with the Community Council and ward members if the measured speed data indicates that there would be benefit in considering their provision. Appendix A contains plans illustrating the proposed extension to the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit and the proposed location of the road humps. The recommendations are contained in paragraph 2, and Helen Underwood and I will be happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thanks, Kevin. Claire?
Yeah, I'd say Belfield too, rather than Riccarton. But anyway, let's not split hairs. This is very much recommended. I very much appreciated rather, and I'm glad it's going to be monitored, and especially in consultation with the community councils. This 30-mile-an-hour speed limit's been needing joined up for a long time, and we also have to take in consideration of the bigger picture, because we're now looking at 20-mile-per-hour review of the whole of Belfield and Shortleys, which we thoroughly welcome. It should not be the case that it's just new houses that get 20 mile per hour, especially when we want everybody to join up. So yeah, this is the start of what I hope is a lot of changes, and I'm delighted it's going to be monitored and hopefully safer. The one thing I would keep a close eye on is the crossing into the Belfield estate, because the children use that to get to school as well. And we very much encourage walking to school, and we don't want them sliced off. We appreciate that there was an extra crossing put in with the higher speed bumps. And if I can just squeeze one more request in here, could you look please at Turnberry Drive speed bumps, because they're never going to deteriorate. They're mountains that you have to get over, and rubber would be appreciated there. I lost the front of my car, but you know, the hanging down, but it's now hanging down. So yeah, if we're talking about joined up, I would like to see Tunbury Drive into that as well. Thank you.
Thanks. Oh, hope you go to the garage and get hanging down, but okay, Tom.
Thanks, Chair. No, just a quick question. I mean, I support what's been proposed. I'm just looking for clarification though. The 20 mile an hour part-time speed limit, is that being retained or is that being taken away? It's not, didn't find this clarity on that one. Thanks.
So, Kevin.
It's been retained.
No, thanks. Just wanted clarification. Thanks.
That's it. And Claire's point about the crossing, because obviously with Kirkstall closing, that changes kind of dynamics, but there's still a lot of children from the Kirkstall area that'll cut through the Belfield estate to go to Waterage School. And it's, in terms of road safety, it's important that there's crossing facilities there, because that will be quite a shortcut to go to the school. And has that been recognised within the scheme?
Yes, through you, Chair, we'll have a look at that, but Helen can give you a wee bit more detail on it. Helen?
So while we were developing the scheme, before we put forward the proposal for the road humps, we did try to provide an enhanced crossing point directly at that location between the remote footway and the entrance to the Belfield estate. Unfortunately, because of the constraints on the curb space, we've got 2 bus stops in that location. We weren't able to find the location for a refuge crossing point that would actually be on the pedestrian desire line, and so that's why we move forward and put that on hold and propose road humps instead. In the longer term, that location does form part of the Infinity Loop, and so there would be the aspiration of providing a toucan crossing facility in that vicinity for that purpose as part of the Infinity Loop project.
Thank you, Chair.
I think that would be useful to mention that, particularly when we're going to consultation, because I think that would provide a wee bit reassurance there. Thanks. Kevin?
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. If there's no other comments, can we agree the recommendations in paragraph 2? Okay, and now going to the proposed amendments to weighting and loading restrictions and designated parking places across East Ayrshire. Kevin, is that you again?
Yes, Chair. Thank you. To advise, the purpose of this report is to advise Cabinet of maintained objections received to a number of proposals included within an advertised amendment order to weighting and loading restrictions and designated parking places in Kilmarnock, Kilmores and Galston, and to present officer recommendations relating to each of the proposals. On-street restrictions on weighting and loading and the provision of parking places, including pay and display, are included within an overarching traffic regulation order at the East Ayrshire Council of various roads within East Ayrshire, weighting and loading restrictions and designated parking places Consolidation Order 2021. In accordance with the Local Authorities Traffic Orders Procedure Scotland Regulations 1999, following consultation with Police Scotland and other statutory bodies on the 10th of August 2021, the proposals were advertised in the local press on the 20th of October 2021. Full details of the proposals were available online at Tell Me Scotland and on consultation page of the ARA website. Directly affected frontages were letter dropped on the 20th of October 2021 with a copy of the notice which provided details of how to find out more information and how to lodge an objection. In accordance with the statutory procedure, the objection period lasted for 21 days. In accordance with the Local Authorities Traffic Orders Procedure Scotland Regulations 1999, the Council is required to consider all objections made and not withdrawn. The Council may cause a hearing to be called to determine objections, but must call a hearing if the Council wishes to proceed with a proposal for weighting and loading where maintained objections have been received. Objections were initially received to 6 of the proposals contained within the advertised amendment order. Following correspondence between officers at Ayrshire Roads Alliance and the objectors, objections were maintained for 4 of the proposals. These are detailed in paragraphs 12 to 15. For completeness, information on all 6 proposals to which objections were initially received and included within this report, including detail in the other cases, the objectors' concerns have been addressed. The recommendations are contained in paragraph 2. Helen and I are happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Kevin. I know the issue of the motorcycle parking bays. A number of people, I think the Business Association had concerns that space wasn't being used. So it's good to see that that's incorporated here. Particularly like to highlight that issue. But members, is there any other? Claire?
Could possibly not comment on parking, Chair. I just, for once, Kevin, thoroughly agree with you, and we should be abandoning the parking idea from 5 to 6 for all businesses concerned, and hopefully we never repeat what happened at Christmas there, which completely impacted on businesses when we gave free parking. Thank you. With the best of intentions, lad.
Thanks, Claire. Anyone else? Okay. Can we agree the recommendations? Okay. On to the trees in Mauchline Tree Preservation. Karen.
Thanks, Chair. Good morning, members. So the purpose of this report is to request agreement to confirm a third tree preservation order in Mauchline as set out in the recommendations in paragraph 2. A tree preservation order provides for the preservation of trees or groups of trees where it is considered required in terms of either amenity or historical significance or both. And East Ayrshire Council has a number of tree preservation orders across its settlements. In terms of the background, Cabinet will recall 2 previous TPOs in Mauchline, confirmed as a result of the Cabinet meeting of the 23rd of February this year. And the Development Planning and Regeneration team are reviewing the suitability of trees across Mauchline, and this work, which is valuable on its own merits in terms of protecting the trees, also supports the Mauchline Conservation Area Regeneration Scheme Award. The natural heritage of Mauchline is an invaluable asset to the setting of the conservation area and the settlement generally, and the protection of trees in and around the conservation area helps to enhance it. This third tree preservation order in Mauchline takes place out with but on the edge of the conservation area. The work on potential TPOs in this area has been sought out by the Community Council. The site of this order is to the north of the settlement of Mauchline at the woods to the north of Netherplace Quadrant. The order under consideration today overlaps with the previous TPOs 1 and 2, which were considered on the 23rd of February, and the spatial relationship between these 3 TPOs can be seen in Appendix 2 of your papers on page 176. And I'll talk more about this relationship and why this is the case shortly. The procedure the Council follows in respect of awarding TPOs is set out in the procedure section of the report in paragraphs 7 and 8. And this is the same for any trees or group of trees we consider and aligns with the templates of other local authorities and the guidance set out in the relevant planning circular. Appendix 3 on page 177 contains the matrix used, which considers a number of matters, including the condition of trees, their anticipated life expectancy, and any development threat which they are under. Paragraphs 9 to 17 of the report set out the detail in respect of this tree preservation order. The site itself has a complex planning history with an appeal dismissed in late 2021. And as I said earlier, this new tree preservation order overlaps with the previous tree preservation orders. These previous orders were prepared whilst there was an appeal ongoing on the site for residential use. And in order not to prejudice the appeal process, these tree preservation orders only took into account the protected trees which weren't affected by the proposals. Now that appeal has been dismissed, and following a number of messages and phone calls from the public in the few days prior to Christmas 2021 about the felling of trees in the area, the site was visited by enforcement planning officers and the council's arborist to determine what was left on site and whether it required to be protected by an order. And the written details of that assessment are contained in Appendix 4 of the papers on page 179. The determination was that a TPO should be prepared, and this was served as an emergency TPO on the 23rd of December, which was a very fun day for all of us. This TPO stands for 6 months only unless we confirm it. Whilst this overlaps with the previous TPO, it protects around a further 60 trees from felling. The trees are a variety of species, as can be seen on page 166 of your papers as part of Appendix 1, including goat willow, silver birch, silver fir and wild cherry, and some of these trees are estimated to be more than 180 years old, and many of them are visible from a range of locations across Mauchline. Paragraphs 15 and 16 set out the consultation and notification arrangements associated with the TPO, and as can be seen, no representations were received. Just draw your attention to paragraph 19, which sets out that there is now a planning application on the site which was received in February this year for 7 houses by the same applicant who had put in the previous application, which was refused. As this was made after we served the TPO, we're satisfied that it is appropriate to pursue formal confirmation thereof. And I would point out that a TPO doesn't preclude works to trees or development from taking place. It simply provides for further scrutiny and also gives the council a further consideration when determining any planning application. Where it is agreed, for example, through an application process that trees can be lost, these are often replaced through condition, where appropriate, with native species. And where trees might die as a result of development or naturally or are diseased, again, felling would be appropriate and replacement trees may or may not be required. If Cabinet agree today to the confirmation of the TPO, colleagues in legal services will assist us by giving notice as set out in paragraphs 20 and 21 and in the legal implications in paragraph 23. Just otherwise, in terms of implications, obviously this, in terms of net zero implications, protection and retention of trees complements the Council's climate strategy. So in conclusion, the report is seeking authorisation to confirm the TPO due to the significant amenity value of the trees, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Karen. Fun-filled day. There's a job for you in comms so the time you get fed up with planning, Karen. Okay, any comments? Neil?
Just a brief comment, Chair. I'm just pleased to see this go through. I know the Community Council have fought long and hard, and it's an important part of Mauchline that if the trees disappear in any way, the whole shape and contours and the structure of Mauchline partly disappears. So I'm pleased to see it going through. Thank you.
Thanks, Neil. Jim? Jim? I thought you'd heard, sir. Okay, sorry about that. Can I give you recommendations? Thanks. Okay, on now to LDP2, the supplementary guidance and Carnegie.
Thanks, Chair. So this report seeks approval for consultation purposes of 2 pieces of supplementary guidance associated with the proposed Local Development Plan 2, which itself was approved for consultation at Council on the 31st of March. So these 2 pieces of supplementary guidance are Dark Sky Park lighting and the Stewarton Development Framework. There are 6 recommendations associated with this are set out in paragraph 2 of your report. Paragraphs 3 to 7 set out the background to the report, and members will be aware from Council on the 31st of March and from various meetings predating that meeting of the preparation of the proposed plan. The plan itself is currently in graphics in advance of consultation commencing on the 23rd of May. In line with the relevant sections of legislation, regulations and guidance, a plan is to focus on a vision, spatial strategy and other key policies and proposals, and more detailed material should be contained not in the plan itself but in what is termed supplementary guidance, and that guidance can be prepared alongside a plan or subsequently to it. However, before it can be used, it must be publicised for consultation to allow people to comment on it. Any piece of guidance which is approved for consultation purposes today would be consulted on alongside the proposed plan. And whilst that's not essential to run the consultations concurrently, it does provide for greater transparency during the consultation process. And it is our intent to produce as much as possible of the supplementary guidance prior to examination of the plan itself. Supplementary guidance is required to cover topics specifically identified in the LDP and be limited to the provision of further information or detail in respect of policies or proposals that are set out therein. And there has to be a sufficient hook in the local development plan policies or proposals to support the guidance in order to give it statutory weight when assessing planning applications. And the full range of guidance expected to accompany the local development plan is set out in Table 1 of the report. Just for information, we can also prepare non-statutory guidance, which, although not forming part of the plan, can still be used as a material consideration in the determination of applications. And Appendix Ii has a list of the non-statutory guidance that we propose at this stage. Paragraph 8 of your report provides a short update on developer contributions and affordable housing supplementary guidance, and members will recall some time spent on this matter during the presentation on the proposed plan at Council on the 31st of March, and the importance of having this guidance ready for consultation in advance of examination. The guidance is progressing well, and we're currently working alongside colleagues across NHS and education to finalise contribution rates, and we expect to be in a position to present this to Cabinet on the 1st of June. Turning to the documents set out in appendices for approval today, the first of these, as described in paragraphs 9 and 10, is dark sky park lighting. The full piece of guidance is in Appendix 1 from page 187 of your papers. The purpose of this guidance is to provide further detailed information in respect to the policy on the dark sky park contained in LDP2, which in itself presumes against development that may undermine the integrity of the dark sky status of the area. It provides primarily guidance on lighting, which assess both applicants and the Development Management Service in assessing applications. When a plan falls, for example, Local Development Plan 1, a new plan is prepared, Local Development Plan 2, all of the statutory guidance also falls, so as it is hooked to the policy in the old plan. So when we adopt LDP2, we need to prepare new guidance. We can't simply carry it over. So the dark sky park lighting was originally written jointly by the 3 Ayrshire councils to support Local Development Plan 1, the current plan, but remains largely relevant to LDP2. So as such, it's been amended only very slightly and is ready to be consulted upon so it can eventually accompany LDP2 when adopted. So the second of these documents is the Sheraton Development Framework. This document was prepared by consultants Ryden and Austin Smith Lord as part of a tendered piece of work to support LDP2. As identified in the early parts of the plan making process, and as we're all aware, Sheraton itself is suffering from a range of infrastructure constraints. This report does a number of things. Firstly, it clarifies exactly what the infrastructure concerns are. And rather than thinking about, for example, how Sheraton feels for those who live or work there or depend upon it for their daily needs, it seeks to get to a factual point about what exactly the infrastructure constraints are, how serious they are, and what is being done or is in the pipeline to address them. For the first time, residents are able to see the data and research behind the infrastructure issues in the town. In researching this, the consultants met with the council colleagues across services as well as other service providers across such as Scottish Water. Having established what the constraints are and how easily or not they are resolved, the report sets out to find ways to address the constraints. In parallel, the report also looks at how Sheraton performs as a place, looking at the characteristics of a 20-minute neighbourhood, which means everything within a 10-minute walk of your house, and also at the town through a climate lens. The key agencies group were also heavily involved in this piece of work, and that group involves a lot of the government bodies. In preparing this document, the Council and the consultants and Architecture and Design Scotland also met 3 times with key representatives of the community. Preparing such a document has been challenging during COVID, but the approach taken was to target groups in the town who act on behalf of residents to create a manageable group of key people who were aware of the needs and wants of those in the town and ask them for their views on living in Sheraton. And this group included, for example, Sheraton Woodlands Action Trust, Sheraton Initiatives, the Community Council, several of the general practitioners from the doctor's surgery, head teachers and Psychoanic. Beyond the research into what is wrong and what is wanted, the report then suggests a series of actions for the Council to consider, and action and placemaking maps. There are 2 tiers to this. The first is that the research informed the land allocations which we saw at Council and the Local Development Plan. And it is important, I think, to say that the engagement undertaken was in terms of collecting and disseminating information. The actual land allocations in the plan were never discussed with the group, as that would have precluded Council's decision on the plan, although we did debate the pros and cons of allocating land as part of that group. These land allocations, including the site at Kilwinning Road for the school and housing, and the existing site of Laneshaw Primary, were made based upon findings of this report. The report, therefore, is an important document which helps to provide the community with context around these allocations and hopefully provides some assurances to the community that the Council is acutely aware of and has plans to address the infrastructure constraints in the town. It also allows residents to make more informed representations to the plan itself. The second tier of actions is around more localised actions which don't require to be in the plan itself but support placemaking and net zero ambitions. These include, for example, actions to improve green infrastructure, create safe school streets and provide cycle path extensions and missing links to promote a modal shift. And many of these actions were taken from community requests. The action plan is deliberately incomplete as the consultation process will ask, aside from more general and specific comments, for respondents to tier the actions in the action plan in order that we can determine how to prioritise them. And whilst all the actions are important, there are too many to be taken forward simultaneously, and therefore a prioritisation will allow a timeline to be prepared of how the action plan will be implemented and for costings to start to be prepared. Both pieces of supplementary guidance are to be issued for public consultation alongside the LDP, and particularly with Stewarton, this allows us to gauge community opinion on the LDP and the supplementary guidance and assess, once the consultation period is complete, our next steps and any matters we wish to take into account that might arise during that process. Paragraphs 12 to 14 set out the consultation requirements. Subject to restrictions, we'll attempt to run in-person events, including one in Stewarton. Should this not prove possible, we will arrange virtual meetings, offering them to a group of representatives involved in the preparation of the document, as well as community councils and other parties, as suggested by our colleagues in Vibrant Communities. We've also been working with Comms this week to prepare smart surveys and press releases for both the plan and the supplementary guidance generally, as well as for Stewarton, and frequently asked questions pages to address the most common questions. Thereafter, independent on the conclusions of examination of the LDP2 proposed plan, the documents will be presented to Council for approval once more prior to adoption. In terms of implications, really main ones in paragraph 16, planning legislation is in the midst of reform. We have to produce all supplementary guidance within 24 months of the new regs coming into force, which will be around about this time 2024. But as indicated in Table 1, this shouldn't be an issue. So in conclusion, the SG will supplementary guidance, will assist the plan in providing an effective policy framework, and therefore we're seeking approval to consult on these documents, and I'm happy to take any questions. Sorry, that was long. Thanks.
No, thanks, Karen. I think it needed to be because there's, I think it's good to have this report just so quickly after we made that important decision in LDB2. But I think some of the arguments still out there on social media, there's misinformation out there, and I think you mentioned comms, and I think we need to, make a clear statement from comms and what the vast majority view was in terms of the fact that we all know the constraints in infrastructure in the Stewarton area, but agreeing the LDP2 made addressing these issues possible, whereas you putting a moratorium on it or other would have absolutely risked that. And I think that message has to get loud and clear. I think that was eloquently made by other local members at that meeting, and I think that needs to be yourself, John, in particular, and I think that needs to go out there, and yourself, Jim, as chair. In terms of the health, the capital, there's confusion between the capital and revenue spend, and the indications are that the health money, there is capital within the education budget that we can hopefully bring to the Stewarton area. In terms of transport, the increase in the population makes that argument for transport improvements more feasible and more likely in a positive outcome. And in terms of the school, that is very much in the capital programme. I think that needs to be shouted that we agreed some months ago. All 32 councils agreed some months ago, and I think that needs to be said as well. And also in terms of social housing, we're addressing some of that need within the new build as well, and that will help some of the families that are on the waiting list for council houses and as well. But I think really a strong message needs to go out there in terms of comms, because clearly there's misinformation out there. Or maybe not say more than that at the moment. John.
I certainly welcome all aspects of the paper here. I think this is an important document. In fact, I'm just sharing it with folk as we speak, because I think it is important that we're at the previous meeting. I think it would have been disastrous for the community if we hadn't went ahead with the plan as we had it. And I think this supplementary guidance is helpful in showing people that it's infrastructure first, if possible, and that's where we need to go. Thank you.
Thanks very much, John. Tom?
No, thanks, Chair. Just first of all, just touching on the whole paper, the Dark Sky supplementary guidance, as was said, I think that has been previously incorporated in LDP1, so there's nothing. I'm quite pleased that just carries on. That's good. In terms of the Stewarton, I think what we have there is a factual position in relation to the situation in Stewarton in terms of population, education requirements, health needs. So I think that's a great starting point to work forward from. And this maybe doesn't solve the problem, but it starts us on the way in how to solve the problems in Stewarton. And I think what you're saying is right. The message has to get out that this is the way forward, and without some land release, then nothing could happen. None of this can actually happen going forward. So I think it's a really important document, and fully support it going out to consultation. And just hope that as many people as possible actually get a chance to read it and come back. I know it's fairly heavy reading. It takes quite a while, but I just hope that people take the time to do that and actually bring their views back to the council in the future.
Thanks for that, Tom. And Jim?
Thanks very much, Chair. Karen, I would just like to pay a bit of respect to you and your colleagues in regard to all the hard work you put into it, and the LDP2 as well. I think in regard to the Dark Sky paper, I mean, as Tom says, that's an important one. The only problem is we don't have an observatory, so we just need to keep our fingers crossed that progresses. The Stewarton paper is important. And I think it underpins, what we already knew, where some of the constraints were. But it is a bona fide document, and we can use it going forward, working with other agencies, bearing in mind the constraints that we already know are there. But a good bit of work, Karen, and well done to you and your colleagues.
Thanks very much, Jim. Any others? Jim? Excuse me.
Thanks, Chair. On the Dark Skies, I couldn't believe that statistic there, that 80% of the UK population have never experienced a dark sky. I can say they don't care what they're missing, because it's absolutely stunning. And you see some of these summer nights and it's absolutely gin clear. And it's great to look upon. I think it's worth noting as well on the Stewarton issue, and again, I think that was highlighted at the time, and again, following up with this, that we've got to lead the decisions there. As a council, and no, the Scottish Government doing that for us, because we would see this morning in Ayrshire that they did that in Perth, where a decision that the council officers recommended and the committee went against was overturned. So it's in our hands, and it's the best way to do it. As long as we have control of it, we can guide that.
300%, yeah. Okay, members, can we agree the recommendations? Okay. Now, go to move exclusion of press and public, and go to item 10. All right.